morning and welcome everyone. My name's Mark Buckhalter. I'm a member of CARG, or Community Association Resource Group, which is really like a consortium of different disciplines that handle various items or topics or services for community associations. Currently, right now on the screen, you'll see Charles from GRC Landscaping. We have Adam Greenstein from ServPro. We have Dawn from the Paving Lady. We have Tim from Maori Elevator. We also have Max from Hickson Pools. Darren is Forever Gone, which is a pest control company. And we have Craig Saxna from Professional Builders, which does janitorial and light maintenance. We will be having Catherine sign on she's a public adjuster. Some of the other people that we have in our group, just very quickly, we do have Popular Bank as one of our members. We have Marcy from Cable Consultants. And we also have Pressure Cleaning and Painting. And that's basically, it's a small little group, but we've all been vetted to go ahead and provide services to condos and HOAs. Today's topic basically will be hurricane preparedness. And it's really like almost a little bit of an open forum. Sometimes we go ahead and we normally give course credit. This isn't right now, but it's an educational type of seminar that we're giving right now. And we'll introduce some of the key players that will be handling things during a hurricane or after a hurricane. And then we'll open up, whatever questions that you may have in the audience. So basically, it's all a free service. It's an educational service. We've been in existence probably for about 4 or 5 years already. And we have quite a bit of a following. We have about 7,500 people that do follow us. So without really further ado, what I would like to do is introduce some of the members of CARG. And what they'll do is start telling you, a brief 5 minutes or so, what condominiums, property managers, the boards should start doing in preparation for a hurricane, what they should be doing during the hurricane, and also obviously after the hurricane. So to start off, basically, I'm going to introduce Charles from GRC Landscaping. And he's a full landscaping company. He's been around for many years. And they do a lot of tree trimming along with all other landscaping items. So Charles, if you can take it over and introduce yourself and tell us a little about what we should be doing before, during, and after a hurricane.
Okay, thank you, Mark. Again, my name is Charles with GRC Landscaping. GRC Landscaping is a full-service lawn maintenance, irrigation, and tree trimming company. And one of the first things that all property managers and board members should really have on their to-do list is get your trees trimmed. Hurricane season started June 1st, as everyone knows, and by now most of us should have our trees trimmed. So the biggest number one preventative maintenance thing that businesses and associations do is get the trees trimmed. The second item that we should be concerned about is your storm drains. I can't tell you how many times I visit properties and walking around with board members or property managers, and I get to a storm drain and I see it's almost full to the top. Well, that is really a problem waiting to happen. I mean, that needs to be drained and make sure that your storm drains are clear from debris, and make sure that there's a clear path to that storm drain. There are companies out there that actually come in with big vac trucks and put a hose in there and just clean it all out. Inspect your gutters. That's another thing that we should be concerned about is, I know that they're probably higher than what we really want to be able to go up and look, but your gutters should be inspected and cleaned if possible. And finally, the last thing for associations to do is to get with your landscape company and try to get your lawn and property serviced as quickly as possible before the storm comes. That will certainly make your cleanup a whole lot easier. Most of this is common sense. Bring in all of your patio furniture, bring it indoors. If you can't bring it indoors, you got to get it tied down. But that's primarily the four things that I have on my list to share with everybody as what we can do as preventative maintenance prior to the storm coming.
All right, terrific. Also, for all of our participants, if you have any particular questions, please go ahead and do that under the Q&A. You can type your question in, and we'll go ahead and we'll ask the different experts to give you those answers. Charles, there is one question as far as with tree trimming, with major cuts, minor cuts, what I always tell my clients, and obviously I'm no expert on landscaping. I only do monthly accounting, but every other year they should be doing almost like a major cut and thinning out, everything. So that was really one of the questions as far as, do we do how often do we do a major cut or the minor cut?
Okay. For hurricane season, what we would recommend is a class 2 pre-hurricane trimming. And what we do is we go up through the canopy of the tree, we remove all the dead wood, we thin it out, and we lift the canopy. On occasion, and especially older, more mature trees, oak trees, banyan trees, ficus trees, that canopy can get extremely large and it'll make the tree very top heavy. Every 2 to 3 years after the tree has been trimmed on a regular basis, you may want to consider doing a canopy reduction to the tree, which will take off 25% of the canopy. The circumference of the canopy, 25% would be removed. And I would do that every 3 years to your larger trees. You could do your palm trees, removing all the fruit and coconuts. Most associations want to do that twice a year, especially before hurricane season. Then there's a standard pre-hurricane trimming on your hardwoods. And then maybe every 3 or 4 years, depending on the size and the maturity of the tree, we can talk about doing a canopy reduction.
Terrific. Thank you so much. So the next person would be not necessarily, well, I guess you would call them beforehand just to establish a relationship, but it would be when you have water extrusion, the person really you should be calling is Adam at ServPro. And Adam, maybe you can go ahead and talk about the importance of contacting you before and the benefits of establishing the relationship before the hurricane hits, because when the hurricane hits, obviously your phone is ringing off the hook.
Absolutely. Thank you for the intro. My name is Adam Greenstein with ServPro of East Davie Cooper City. That's ServPro of East Davie Cooper City. I repeat, because there's a lot of competition. There's a lot of ServPros in the area. So if you call for me, you may not get me if you call someone else. So we'll share our contact info later with everybody. But basically, we've family-owned operation. We've been in business since 2008. We are water damage certified. We have multiple certifications in that field. Mold damage, we do a lot of mold remediations. We are Florida State mold remediators as well. And we are certified building contractors. So we are able to start and finish your whole process seamlessly. We'll just make it like it never even happened. Now, property managers, building presidents, VPs, if you want priority with me, the best thing to do before a storm is to have an authorized contract ready to go. to sign something with a restoration company, hopefully mine. And we don't do that many of them. We have 10. We have 10 buildings right now that we have this agreement program with, and whatever happens, we will be there right away. A lot of restoration companies call for backups, people from other states. You want someone who's familiar with the area, familiar with the territory, and who can actually assist in getting your project done from start to finish. Don't have to worry about chasing someone in another state. So you will get priority with us if you do a pre-authorization, or if you do an ERP, an emergency ready profile. Basically, we give you a layout of the land, show off where your shut-off valves are, where your electrical rooms are located, your computer servers. We make sure that we have everything in place just in case you do have an event. Nobody from our company shows up blindly. And that's what you can do in the meantime, just to kind of get the ball rolling before a storm.
Terrific.
Um,
Go ahead, I'm sorry.
Sorry, no, that I did stop for a little long there. I do want to mention there are some steps that I would suggest you all take during and like right before a storm, and then during. Like, obviously you want to elevate your personal possessions, your contents, heirlooms, computers, anything that's really valuable. Let's say you're on the first floor of your home, or your uh community, the community center. You want to make sure all the expensive stuff gets elevated a little bit, because water will come in 6 inches to a couple of feet, depending on the situation. Take pictures, video everything before a storm to document your personal possessions. Um, I would also recommend, when the storm happens, you do have water, do everything you can to sweep, mop, get all the water out as soon as possible. It might be a little while before help does arrive, but it will arrive sooner than later. And those are just some of the things that I would recommend doing, right off the bat.
Adam, there's one question that one of the audience is asking about black mold. What the question really is, what does that mean?
Okay, so if you have water damage based off of some weather event, or even internally a pipe or something that breaks, toilet overflows, AC leaks, whatever it is, um, black mold just looks ugly. But there's all different kinds and colors of mold. All of them mean different things. I would say there's so many different classifications: Stachybotrys, Chaetotonum, Aspergillus, penicillin. All of these are three major molds that you'll find in Florida alone, and they can be different colors as well. But if you have water damage and don't get it treated within a 72-hour window, let's say maybe 96 hours, you're going to have some light mold growth, and within a matter of weeks, it's going to be a full-on party. So yeah, black mold is a non-industry term, but mold is mold. I mean, you don't want it no matter what kind it is.
Right. And then we have another question from Beth asking about what happens if there's no electricity in their condo and you have to come in with equipment. What happens?
Okay, yeah. Hopefully the building has a backup generator. That would be awesome. If not, we have so many different companies at our disposal that will deliver generators to a site, to a job site. So that's a pretty important thing. If that's not at all possible, the best thing to do is remove, blot, sweep water out of your place. We could still show up and extract the water. We have all of our all of our equipment is battery operated, if possible. So we could still help with the removal process if there's no power, but our ability to save and secure items goes out the window if there's no power. No power, no equipment, no dehumidifiers, no air movers. We would have to cut and replace versus trying to put equipment and save.
All right. And then there's one more question, is what happens if the drywall gets wet? Can your company, replace drywall, or what happens? Do you have to call in another sub?
No, we have excellent drywall finishers within our company that can do any sort of job, texture. If you want, popcorn ceilings removed, smooth out, we even do things like that, bathrooms, kitchen. So we do remodel everything. But more importantly, if there's drywall that's affected during a storm, you got to find out where the water source came from. If water came outside, like flood water, anything that nasty category 3 black water touches, you got to demo and remove. A baseboard, gone. A little bit of drywall, gone. So, yeah, I hope that better answers the question.
So Adam, so even if it dries out, let's say the baseboard dries out, once it's, and this is really my question, once the baseboard dries out and it looks good, are you still saying that there's still moisture or mold that potentially could be growing there?
If there's a lot of pollutants in the water that came into your domain, you would basically need to find out, what kind of water it is. If it's black water, again, you got to cut it out, because what happens is it might dry out properly, but it's going to start to smell. You're going to have an odor that's going to be left behind more than not. I've seen people, go rogue, and I'm not cutting anything out, and maybe it works out for them, but health is a big concern, a big factor in everything that we do. So if it's black water, it's got to go, including rugs, area rugs, wood flooring, all that stuff. It's if black water, rainwater from outside coming in, it's got to be replaced.
Right. All right. Well, thank you for that. There was a question, Charles, can you just give out your contact number? John from the audience was just asking about how they can contact you.
Yes, sir. My cell phone is area code 954-242-8815. Repeat, that's 954-242-8815 is the best way to reach me.
Terrific. And also for the participants, if you go on to CARG, C-A-R-G, the number 4, and then help.org. So it would be CARG4help.org. You'll have a listing of all the different disciplines and the contact information there also.
Mark, I just want to inform you too that Catherine has joined us. So when you're ready for her, she is here.
Terrific. Well, you know what? Let me do Darren. Can you just unmute yourself? I see that you're muted right this second. Darren is the owner of Forever Garden Pest Control. Obviously, in our daily lives, we all have all these nasty little pests from the outside or the inside. And if you're a board member, you probably have a lot of nasty, pesty unit owners that you have to contend with. Darren doesn't handle individuals, but he does handle all the little critters. So Darren, maybe you can tell us a little about pests and hurricanes and what we should be doing.
Yeah, my name is Darren. My company is Forever Gone Pest Control. We do actually do some residential as well as, but the bulk of our work is in HOAs. We do rodent control, interior pest control, fertilization, plant pest control. I'm not going to say that we'll be the first company you call after a hurricane, but there are a couple helpful tips that I could give you to prepare for it and a couple things after. Pests do pose health risks, and when there's hurricanes, there is more pest activity. So some of the things you can do is, one of the things with hurricanes, there's a lot of flooding and standing water. So mosquitoes are a big issue. So there's a product called dunks, which are you can put in the standing water around your homes or your properties or HOAs, and that helps with the mosquitoes from becoming mature, and it'll help kill the larvae. So if you purchase a product called dunks, you can get them from Home Depot, Lowe's, that will help, but at least have some mosquito repellent, because the pest will be attracted to the standing water. I would also seal up any cracks, crevices before a storm, because with the flood waters or unfortunately the rodents and pests, insects such as roaches will all travel with the flood water. So to keep them out of your house, the best thing to do is to seal up any cracks, crevices with foam. We can do that for you. We do a lot of exclusion work on buildings. Off of what Charles mentioned, keeping trees and away from your homes, your roof, is important too, because insects will travel. They'll come up from the soil. They'll flush out the ants, roaches. So if they can get onto trees and they can get onto your house, that's another way that you'll have an issue with pests and storms. Also rodent bait stations, which a lot of communities use to prevent rodents. It's the front line against rodent control. I would take those inside because the rodenticide blocks on the inside need to be dry to be viable. So if you bring them in and then take them out after the storm when there's pest activity, that would be the best thing to do for that. Also, if your trees or plants defoliate from the storm, we can help fertilize and promote healthy new growth after that's happened. So those are some of the things that you can do before and after a storm as it relates to pest control.
All right, terrific. There is a question. Seems like whenever there's a lot of rain, there's a lot of frogs. What can we do?
There's a few things you can do. There's repellents that keep them away. They do, again, they translocate when there's water, and you will notice them. Where there's also the bait stations we've used where you put the rodenticide blocks, you can put glue traps in there and replace the glue boards every month as well. But those are seasonal. They're dangerous too. The bofu toads can be dangerous to pets. So also exclusion works. If you have fences, we can keep them out. But there are products that we can use to repel frogs, insects, and the bofu toads that are toxic.
Okay, terrific. Then we have Tim from Maori Elevator. Obviously you see his name on the screen, so it looks like he's probably the owner with the name Tim Maori, and it's Maori Elevator. I know Tim's been around for a long time. He's well respected in the community. Tim, can you share some thoughts, especially, specifically really on hurricanes, but again, with the participants, if you have any questions that's even about elevators that's not hurricane related, now's a great time to, send your question in, and we'll share it with Tim to go ahead and give you some answers.
Well, thank you so much, and good morning. I am Tim Maori, but I'm actually Tim Maori Jr. I'm a second generation. My father and mother started Maori Elevator Company in 1976 right here in Cooper City. So we started a long time ago here, and now our main corporate office is up in Marietta, Florida, where we have our manufacturing plant, and we actually operate in 6 states now. So we've come a long way, but started right here in South Florida. So it's a pleasure to be with you this morning. So this is a very common a lot of questions, a common topic this time of year with a lot of our customers that we have here in South Florida. So as it relates to elevators, a lot of the things that you need to know, specifically for buildings that have these elevators where there's a lot of residents, as much as even businesses, but more residents, when especially in flood zones, in evacuation areas, anytime there's a hurricane coming and they do order evacuations for these areas, we do suggest that those evacuations happen in condominiums and apartments as early as possible, because a lot of times we're dealing with elderly, and it takes quite a bit of time for them to evacuate. So it is very important. So before the storm, it's very important, and I know Charles made this comment regarding drains and vents. Well, a lot of elevators in South Florida, the elevator entrances are on catwalks and they're outside. There's usually drains on the floor outside these elevator doors. Those drains have got to be checked. They have to be draining properly, because when water backs up on the lobby floors, especially on the upper floors, it's going to pool up and that water is going to end up going down the hoistway. This is going to cause elevators to break down. It's going to cause damage to elevators and a lot of problems, not to mention it's just hazardous where people are going to be walking. You also want to make sure that you're checking all of your vents. There's usually a vent at the top of the elevator shaft. You want to make sure these vents are in place. You want to make sure they're not broken or holes in them.
Hey, Thor,
Because
I got you another shirt too.
Okay,
I forgot
thanks.
to give it to you the other day.
Whoops, Craig, can you just mute yourself?
I'm sorry. Sorry about that.
no problem. So, so you want to check your vents at the top of the shaft. There's usually a vent in the elevator machine room door. You want to make sure that vent is in place. If at any time your vents are broken or even missing before a hurricane comes, those need to be boarded up the same way you're going to board up a window or something along those lines. So this is very, very important. So the areas around the elevator doors and the hallways, it's advisable to sandbag those once the elevator is taken out of service. And the reason for that is because you don't want water going down the shaft. And it is something that unfortunately is going to happen when you have a hurricane and it's a driving rain and things along this nature. Okay. So you also, with regards to condominiums and apartments, you want to check with, the residents that you have in the building. If you have disabled individuals, if you have people that require having to leave the building a couple times a week, maybe for medical reasons or dialysis, they have to assume when a hurricane comes that that elevator is going to be out of service, whether it's damage to the elevator, whether it's power related, any of this. And so urging residents, even if it's not a mandatory evacuation, urging them to choose to evacuate a condominium is very, very important. So now we're going to move on to when the storm is coming. People always say to us, well, what do I need to do with my elevator before a storm hits? If you're in a rule of thumb, you want to park the elevator halfway up the hoistway. You don't want to leave it on the first floor. So if you got a 5-story building, you want to park it on the 3rd floor. If you have a 4-story, park it on the 2nd or 3rd floor. If it's a 2-stop, park it on the top floor, park it on the 2nd floor. The reason why you want to do that is because of the flooding. We're seeing more and more flooding in South Florida than ever before. And the elevator pit is 4 feet deep and it's 4 feet below the first floor level. So we're finding even in these major rain events that we're having, our pits are getting flooded. And when the elevator comes to the first floor, it's going to submerge itself in that water, and that's going to cause major damage to the elevator. So how do you go about shutting an elevator off during a hurricane? Rule of thumb, you want to have 2 people to do this. One person's going to get in the car with their cell phone. One's going to be in the elevator machine room. The person in the car is going to carry the elevator up to the middle of the building. They're going to get out of the elevator and let the elevator door close as they're on the cell phone with the other person that's in the machine room. As soon as that door closes, in the elevator machine room is a mainline disconnect. It's a red handle that has an on and off switch to it. That is the power to the elevator. As soon as that door closes, you're going to pull that switch to the off position. And now you've safely parked and secured the elevator midway in the building until the storm passes. After the storm passes, it's very important that the pit is checked to make sure it's not flooded. We had an incident in South Beach where there was a 15-story building and there was a bad storm and the first floor flooded. Well, the first floor was a parking garage. So the main lobby was on the 2nd floor, and that's the main entrance in the ground level of the building. No one checked the first floor that had 8 foot of water in it. When they turned the elevator on, that elevator went down and caused $40,000 of damage to the elevator. Luckily, no one was hurt, but and it's kind of a high-end condo. So, you know, having the money to replace the elevator was not a big issue for them. But I tell you what was, it took 8 weeks to have another elevator manufactured. And that means that elevator was down after the storm passed for 2 months. And that was a major issue with the building. So once the storm passes, you want to make sure that you check all areas before you put your elevator back in service. The last thing I'm going to bring up is people always ask, when should I turn my elevator off? Rule of thumb, you want to have your elevator turned off 6 to 8 hours before the storm hits the location that you're at. They say, well, that's a lot of time. Why wait so long? Well, if someone's in the elevator 3 hours before and they get trapped in there and my tech can't get there, now they're stuck in that elevator until the storm passes. And that's incredibly dangerous. When they report that first responders and fire department cannot no longer get on the road when the storm hits, this is the same time where, you know, hours before that, elevator companies and people like us cannot get on the road either. So you want to make sure that elevator is blocked off, turned off, and not used for the entire time until the storm passes and everything is found to be safe to put back into service. So that's about everything as it relates to elevators and hurricanes and storms like that. I'll be glad to open up with any questions that you may have as it relates to that or anything else with elevators.
Actually, Tim, there is a question, and it's really not hurricane related, but they're asking about your company as far as other service, you know, what full services do you provide for condos and HOAs?
So we've been in business, we're approaching 50 years in the industry. And the one thing that makes Maori Elevator Company unique is that we engineer, we design, we manufacture from raw materials. We install, service, renovate. We do anything you can possibly think of for elevators. We manufacture and install about 350 new elevators a year. We do everything from big freight military elevators to hotels, to nursing homes, condominiums, even residential elevators in homes. So rule of thumb, whatever you need, we design them, we engineer, we manufacture and install.
Okay, terrific. You know, I do know, and I want to give you a shout out. One of the clients that I have, you know, I'm an accountant, and you know, I'm usually called, you know, whenever they have a question or a special project. So this was in Hallandale. It was one of the clients have contacted you, and you started working with them, and they called me up, and they were really happy with the reference that I gave, you know, to your company.
Well, that's a testament. That's a testament to my staff. You know, it's one thing for me to say this is how we are, but it's the actions of our staff that give us the reputation that we've had since day one. So, and that's what's helped us to be successful in this industry.
Yeah, actually, it was Andrew that called them up and spoke to him and started giving proposals. They said he was a real gentleman and very knowledgeable.
Very good. I'm glad to hear that.
So
Yes.
thank you for that. Max, maybe you can unmute yourself. Max is with Hickson Pools. And there's always that question, do we throw in the lawn furniture? Do we dump in the chlorine? So maybe you can tell us everything that we need to know about pools.
Understood. How you doing? My name is Max Pivnik. I work with Hickson Pools. I'm one of the main supervisors there. I've been working with pools for at least 11 to 12 years, not with Hickson, but just in the pool business itself. So a lot of things with commercial pools or HOA houses that have, you know, those big pools is what you want to do is exactly what Charles said in the beginning. Any trees that are around, any vegetation, dead limbs, you're going to want to get those trimmed down. I've seen a lot of equipment get damaged that's outside. Some commercial properties do have equipment inside, so that won't be a problem there. But the other thing would be is you have residents that have any type of screens in the patios. You don't want those to also get damaged from any dead vegetation, any type of overgrown type trees. A lot of times where it comes to where you said about that question for the like chairs, tables, any type of equipment outside that's not strapped down. Typically, a lot of people would say throw them into the pool. I recommend not. Reason why, there's a lot of chemicals in the pool. You're throwing, if there's chairs that are metal that are going to the pool, that can have a chemical reaction, which can damage the surfacing of your pool. If they're, depending on who's throwing it into the pool, you can damage the floor by, chips. So I don't really recommend throwing them into the pool. I recommend them tying them down, strap them all together, probably putting them close to a wall. Or if you have a storage unit, best to put them in a storage unit if you have somewhere you can store everything. But I would not recommend throwing them in the pool due to the chemicals in there and how corrosive they can be towards not only to your lawn chairs and tables, but just damaging the pool in general, getting stains. So I don't recommend dropping them into the pool. A lot of people believe draining the pool is the best because obviously they don't want the pool to flood. I recommend only draining it down 6 to 8 inches. The reason why is because if, for example, the ground is saturated with water and you drain that pool way too low, there's a possibility of that pool popping out. If that pool pops out, you have to rebuild the entire pool. So I highly recommend only 6 to 8 inches and keeping the sub pump on. Now, when it comes to the sub pump, it's going to be located normally in the equipment room if you have one. You want to turn all the equipment off by the breaker. You don't want to have any of the equipment on just in case of flooding. So if your equipment's outside, you want the breaker off. If you have an equipment room that's prone to getting flooded, have the equipment off. Any gas heaters, you want to turn off by the main valve. You don't want any gas on at all. If there's any issue, for example, if something breaks that line, you have gas running outside, that's a hazard. Big issues can happen there as well. If you have an equipment room that you can possibly put, if it does prone to flooding, any type of sandbags, any way that you can keep that equipment dry, that's what you would like to try to do. Let's say, for example, the equipment did get wet. You're going to want to allow that to, obviously let the water drain out or get the water out, and then leave the equipment off for at least maybe 24 to 8 hours to really get some, let it dry out. If the equipment's been submerged, you turn it on right away, right after, it may circuit out and your equipment's damaged there. So sometimes you can save your equipment by just letting it dry for a few days and seeing, if anything is working still. Chemicals. So typically with commercial pools, you have a standard on DOH to keep the chemicals at a certain level. Now, if you would like, you can add a few, mainly chlorine. You can add a little bit of extra chlorine because you are going to get a lot of fresh water into the pool, which is going to get diluted. And then depending on when your maintenance service can come back out and get the chemicals back in, you can see prone to algae growth in the pool. So typically it's best to add a little bit higher dosage due to hurricane. And then after still having the pool closed, having your maintenance guy come back and then getting the proper chemicals and getting it leveled out before reopening the pool.
Okay, Max, there is a question that's asking, can they use their own internal maintenance people to maintain the pool, or do you have to be licensed?
You have to be DOH certified. So yes, you will have to be, CPO certified. So as long as your maintenance guy is CPO certified, he can maintenance the pool.
Okay, terrific. In general, as I was mentioning before, it's so important for the boards or for the management companies to go ahead and establish relationships with, the different people that you will need, especially after a catastrophe or even a minor hurricane, when you need either the pool taken care of, whether you go ahead and need the elevator taken care of. I know in my own community, this was back in 2005, I think it was, when we had that big storm. We had a lot of trees that went down in the community. And because we had that relationship with our landscaper, we were the first ones to get those roads cleared. But it really applies to all the different vendors that, or contractors that we have right here, is to establish that relationship beforehand. I was mentioning even like with ServPro, ServPro is not something that is like a monthly service, but if you go ahead and you establish the relationship with ServPro, when you have that problem, obviously you're getting serviced first and you're not getting serviced on number 100 call and waiting for that. So it's really very important, just in general for boards, to go ahead and to reach out to the different contractors that you have or that you feel that you may need, and have that relationship so that when you make that call, you'll get service pretty quickly. The next person that we're going to talk about is Craig. Can you unmute yourself? Craig is with Professional Builders. Not sure whether he
Sure.
just took a call.
No, I'm good. Can you hear me?
There you go. Yep, we do.
All right. Good morning, everybody. I'm Craig Saxner, Professional Building Services. We are a full-service janitorial and property maintenance company, actually celebrating our 43rd year in business this year. To piggyback on what a couple of our other vendors have talked about, the big part for hurricane prep is the prevention of projectile objects. It's just common sense stuff, taking the planters, secure the lawn furniture, have the residents be diligent about what they're leaving out around their property, whether if it's an HOA, bringing in stuff into their garage, if it's a condo, bringing it off the balconies, etc. It's very simple. Just like I said, common sense stuff. We can provide labor. We can help with the prep. We can also provide help with the cleanup as well. And like I said, celebrating our 43rd year, we can offer a lot of different services, and we're available. So I just wanted to keep it short and give somebody else an opportunity to speak.
Terrific. And I'm sure there'll be some questions, Craig, and I'll float them out to you as soon as they come in.
Sounds good.
Then we also have now from Pallets Roofing. I'm not sure who's actually on. If you can unmute yourself. You may have stepped away from the camera for a few minutes. Is Pallets Roofing there? Okay, well, we'll wait until he gets back. He maybe he had to take a call. Catherine is my favorite public adjuster. Catherine, if you can unmute yourself.
I'm here.
Hi, Catherine. So, Catherine, I have to tell you, in general, and I usually say this to a lot of my clients, you have to be very cautious and aware and really vet public adjusters. There's a lot of, to me, there's a lot of phonies out there. They come out of the woodwork, as soon as the storm hits, and they're all trying to get your business. They can be out of state, but Catherine is here locally, and she's probably, in addition to be one of the most knowledgeable people I know doing, public adjusting, she's just a nice person, and she's honest. And that's really what you need. She has the contacts with the insurance companies. I know when my clients call me up and they have a problem, Catherine is probably the only person that I recommend. So Catherine, with that, maybe you can go ahead and tell us everything we wanted to know about public adjusting.
Thanks, Mark. I had a couple slides that Jeff was going to throw on. Let's see. I'll just go through them pretty quick. So basically, my name's Catherine. I've been a public adjuster for a couple of years now. I don't know how, more than probably 5-6 years now. And we're with Prime Claims. We do all of residential and commercial. So even if you have a home, I can still help you out if you're on this call. However, when it comes to community associations and condo HOA, you have to be very careful, as with any claim, because it's like a game of chess on how you're dealing with it. And pretty much in preparation for these storms, I'm going to go over some facts real quick so you guys can get the severity of how bad these hurricanes can be. So last year we had 20 named storms, and in 2023 it ranked as the 4th most active season since 1950. And actually the year before that, 2022, was the 3rd most active season. And last year we got lucky because there was only 3 to 4 billion in damages caused by hurricanes, but the year right before that, in 2022, was $118 billion. So that alone tells you right there how damaging these storms are. They are massive, and I've worked through the worst of the worst the worst of storms right after it hits. So being prepared for them. You know, I know that we're in Florida and we almost, you know, some people you're like, oh, we are hurricane proof. We don't care about hurricanes. Once it hits a Cat 3, maybe I'll start preparing, right? But that is not what we should be doing, especially when we are in you know, in these condos, because there's so much that can go wrong. So a Cat 3 is what we start considering a major storm. And that's when we actually start paying attention to the TV, right? We're like, oh, okay, now maybe I'll take a look at it. So that starts at 111 mph winds. But just to let you know, your roof can start, you know, moving at, let's say, 80, 90 miles an hour, right? So that already starts affecting your roof. So I know pallets roofing might go over that. So your insurance policy matters. So before a storm happens, you should be reviewing your policy deductibles, taking a look at your coverage and seeing if you have unnecessary coverage. You might have coverage that you don't need, or you might be underinsured, and you don't want to be underinsured, because the minute that you put in a claim and they notice that you were underinsured, maybe you wanted to save some money here and there, especially now with policies being so expensive in Florida, you want to save some money, you ended up being underinsured. That money that you were underinsured for is going to be taken from your claim amount. So your policy needs change from year to year. You might have had new upgrades. You might have special additions that you did to your property. You want to make sure that you're covered, and you need to understand the steps that need to be taken in your policy to prevent further damage. So creating an action plan and meeting with the board and making sure that unit owners are aware of what's going on before a hurricane, you know, arrives is very important. So one of the main thing is making sure you have a full certified copy of your policy, not just a jacket. A lot of us have, even for our own homes, keep in mind, it's you have maybe just your declaration page. That is not it. You need to make sure you have all of the policy language, especially because, for example, if a hurricane does hit, someone asks you, oh, let me see the policy, and you don't have the full policy. After a storm, everyone is busy. People can't get to their offices. You ask State Farm, oh, or whoever you may have, oh, email me a full copy of my policy. It might be a while before they get to you. So now you're waiting on them, and it's prolonging your understanding of whether I should file a claim or not, because you're not sure if this is covered. You're not sure if the claim is worth it, right? So making sure you have your full certified copy of your policy is important. You can even put it in a USB and make sure all your documents are in a USB. So that way you don't have to ask anyone for anything. Are you in need of flood insurance? Flood insurance is important. Recently, we've seen in Florida how bad the flooding can be, and having flood insurance is completely different than having your wind insurance. It's a completely different policy, very important for you to have. There's so many things that are not covered in your wind insurance that are caused by flood, and same thing, there's so many things in your flood insurance that are not covered. You know, you may think one policy covers what another one does, and it's very good for you to know exactly what's under each policy. And go to the next slide. So yeah, your unit owners and residents, you got to make sure you know the unit owners, the residents, they understand the benefit of them having their own insurance, because your condo policy covers mainly your structures that are outside, that are the walls inside of the property. They're very different. Each policy is different. However, your individual unit owners, whatever damage happens in their specific unit, such as, let's say, something, the roof leaked into their unit, the damage that was caused in that inside walls in that unit would not be covered by the condo policy. That's covered by that individual unit owner's policy. And if they don't have insurance, and they think, oh no, I'm just gonna tell the condo they owe me. That's not how it works. So if residents' homes are inhabitable, you gotta make sure that they have an emergency plan of where to go. Your public adjuster who works with your condo and HOA, which I really feel every single person should have that person they call when they wanna have an informational meeting for their owners. So to explain to them maybe their own personal policy and maybe go over the condominium's policy. They can help them understand what they've got going on. So your vendors are important on this call. We have a couple of different vendors, all which play a role in, you preparing your property for hurricane season. Having them in line is important. Some of these vendors, especially the ones that are on this call, will be on call for you and can put you on a priority checklist. So the minute that you call the elevator company, they will be coming out immediately, making sure that, you don't need to call a different elevator company, a different landscaping company, because these people that are on the Zoom call right now, they put you as priority pretty much. And that's just what I mean by having your vendors ready. So you don't have to be calling around and seeing who's available at the time right after a hurricane. And again, restoration company, roofing company, making sure that they have good credentials and making sure that, their licenses are in place. And especially if you're on this call, you don't even really have to be doing that right now, because everyone who's here has been vetted and is usually the number one in their industry. The contracts are important. So contracts can have a lot of like murky and unfavorable language that you may not understand. And that's why having a public adjuster is important, because we are, we're trained to read these contracts. We're trained to read these policies. If you have a vendor that you're not unsure of and they're giving you a contract, we might even look over it for you and maybe say, hey, you know what, this is not a contract that we like. Maybe you want a question here and there. Check the licenses of whoever you're using and vendors that come out to the property. Because especially when it comes to storm season, everyone comes down Texas, from any state possible you can think of. Just got their license a month ago and they're coming down here to offer you help. Your documentation, basically this is something that I pretty much went over already, but one thing I do want to touch up on, as you see this drone, I know Pallet Roofing does this as well. They will come to your property and do an inspection, and having your documentation as well as your PA, we all work pretty closely together. We document your property and making sure that you have your pictures, you have videos of the property, because under your policy, you are meant to have your property be brought back to pre-loss condition. So if you don't have a picture of what that looks like, if you don't have anything, any documentation of what your property or what good standing it was in before that, it's very hard to file your claim. And I say this all the time, documentation beats conversation any day. You can tell someone your property was the best looking one, but it's word for word. So documenting everything, documenting your interior, your common areas is very, very important when it comes to having to file a claim and adjusting that claim. Unit owners, making sure that they have a plan and they know where to go, telling them to remove any balcony items that may fly away, distribute a hurricane plan to all the residents, making sure they take photos of their property, their kitchen, their cabinets, their floors, their walls, a lot of that can get damaged once a storm comes, and making sure they know if they will be able to access the property, should they be evacuated, and having a line of communication set up where they can be able to know when they can come back to that property. So just to sum it up, putting your service providers on blast, which is the vendors on this call, communicate the evacuation orders to the unit owners, and making sure that you have your full certified copy of your policy. Some of the most important things. And a lot of the work happens after the storm. So after a storm hits, making sure you contact your public adjuster to come out and inspect your property and seeing the damages you have before calling your insurance company. Because if you have slight damage, it may not be worth it depending on the deductible you have. Hurricane deductibles are higher than a regular deductible for you to file this claim. This picture that you see here is actually a picture that I took after a hurricane. So inspecting a property, so you know the roof completely blown off, half the structure, damaged. So coming in there, inspecting these properties, it's important. Not to forget to document tree and fence damage around the property. It's something that a lot of people forget because there's so much going on, but that's something that a public adjuster is going to have at the top of their mind. While you're dealing with all the chaos going on around you, we know exactly what to be looking for. And having a preparedness plan, I already went over all of this. knowing your rights, you have the right to be restored back to pre-loss condition. You have the burden of proving your damages, which is why documentation is the most important thing. And understanding the statute of limitation on hurricane claims. You don't want to wait too long to file a claim, because there are many things that can hinder you when it comes to filing a claim that was late reported. And you need to know how long you have until you can file a claim. And that's all something a PA can tell you. And that's it. Just want to say thank you. That's my information on the slide. That's my personal phone number. You can reach me anytime. Thank you.
Kat, let me just ask you this, because maybe you can expand on it, because the last time you and I met, which is something I didn't realize that your company did as a service, was to go ahead and you touched on it as far as documenting, taking pictures before any kind of catastrophe hits and the importance of it. And it sounded, when you spoke to me, this was really like a free service, I think, that you were offering, a building that would call you up and say, I want to have my building documented.
Right.
And to me, it was when you said that to me, my eyes opened up, and probably every one of my accounting clients, I've mentioned this to you, mentioned it too. So can you just expand on that? Because to me, I think that's one of the greatest features that you can possibly do.
Yeah, so we will come out to your property, document it, take pictures, make sure we have everything that you need. In case it did happen that you had damage from a hurricane, making sure that you pretty much have it. We create basically a file for you, and if it so happens that you do get damage from a hurricane, you pretty much will give us a call. And, when we are adjusting this claim for you, we have everything that's needed in order to, adjust the claim properly, because the documentation, everything will be documented. There's so many times that I go to these properties and, they don't have pictures of what this looked like before. They don't have pictures of, they don't have an inspection report. They don't have a roofing inspection that was, done by a certified person, so having a word for word exchange with an insurance company, it just means nothing. But you having all your documentation, all your ducks in a row, will definitely help you get your claim paid out faster and more efficiently. And obviously you want to make sure you have enough money to be able to fix everything you've got going on.
And that, again, that is a free service that you offer.
Yeah.
Terrific. There is another question that I have from one of the participants asking, can I use my attorney to act as a public adjuster?
Well, an attorney can act as a public adjuster. You'd first call your public adjuster. And if a public adjuster cannot get you what you are owed, or there is some trouble along the way, then you would refer over to an attorney. And usually public adjusters have good relationships with attorneys if they need it.
Right. And this is really a question or a comment that I have, is that, I've always told the clients before they even speak to, if they have a claim, before they speak to the insurance company, they really should be speaking to the public adjuster.
Yeah.
Is that still valid?
Yeah, your insurance company is going to write down even any question you call in to ask them, because all of that information, they do their own documentation. They make sure they have notes on everything. So any inquiry you may have to them, they can call and see like, oh, well, you inquired about your roof on, 4 months ago. Now you're making a claim saying that everything, 4 months later, you're making a claim saying, oh, no, my roof was great. But no, wait, remember when you called in? So it's really good to first have a look by someone who's a professional, who knows what will be asked. It's like a game of chess. You got to know your moves, and making sure, your PA is basically your best representative that has worked thousands and thousands of claims, that will let you know from an honest opinion of what you should do.
Right. All right. Terrific. Kat, can you do me one favor? Pallets, I don't know if he's having a technical issue. Can you contact them and see if they can sign on?
Let me see.
Because I know that there's going to be a lot of questions about roofing. While she's doing that, let me just say this. In my firm as a consultant, we do condominium monthly accounting.
I think
Um,
Pallets is on, by the way.
Oh, there he is. Okay. Why don't
Good
we,
afternoon, sir.
hi, how are you?
Very good.
This is Pallets Roofing, and obviously when we have storms, that's probably one of the first people that you need to call. So maybe you can go ahead and explain about, hurricanes and everything that we didn't really want to know, but we have to.
Absolutely. Good morning. Yeah, so we're Pallets Roofing. We're 25 years in the business, family owned, been dealing with hurricanes for a long time. And for residential, of course you want to, like she touched on, is get some photos of your roof so you can, prove the condition of your roof before the storm. You want to have a licensed roofing contractor come out and give you, an inspection, look for loose tiles, broken tiles, um, shingles of that sort. And then also on your flat roofs, you want to make sure that your drains are all cleared and that they're not clogged up with leaves or debris. A lot of times on your commercial properties, you have air conditioning contractors that go up there and they might repair air conditioners, leave off panels, leave old equipment up on the roof. A motor, a fan motor, a compressor. Lots of times you wouldn't think so, but they leave them behind. And then, of course, in high winds now, you have a 50-pound motor tumbling across your roof, making holes all the way across. And then, of course, it, can make its way off the roof and damage and hurt people, on the ground. A big thing for us as well is equipment. So a lot of your equipment, when it's serviced, people unscrew the straps that hold the equipment down. And then when they're done, a lot of times, believe it or not, they don't restrap it down. So when you have us come out to your roof, what we're going to do is not only are we going to check for the condition of your roof to make sure we don't find any weak spots, anything like that. But we're also going to be checking a lot of your existing equipment to make sure it's not loose, to make sure it's not, going to fly off. So that's one of the main things that we do, just trying to make sure that before the storm, that you're not going to have things on your roof, that you're not going to have clogged drains, that you don't have any, broken tiles, shingles of that sort, or ridge caps, stuff like that. So that's the basic thing that we do. And then of course, after the storm is another similar situation where we go up there and we're going to verify what damage that we could see from your storm. We'll even go up inside your attics to make sure we don't see no moisture, that's coming through. So that's how we handle it. And that's some of the things that are very important to look for, or even things that aren't associated with the roof per se, but associated with your equipment that's on the roof. Another thing is not many homes have them anymore, but the wind turbines, the ones that spin, before a storm, the best thing to do is take those things off and cap them with a metal cap. That way, when you're having, high winds, they don't spin off and then they stay open the whole storm. By the time you're done and you go up there and inspect, you see it's blown off and now you have 10 hours of rain that's infiltrated your building.
We do have a question as far as topping versus I'm trying to read this. They said about something about like shrink wrapping a roof.
Yes, absolutely. So a lot of people use tarps. Tarps are not the best option. The shrink wrap is a much thicker, and it when it's heated up, it heat shrinks down to the roof and gives you a much more durable surface during a storm. So yes, if before the storm, if you had an inspection and we came out and said, you have compromised areas, the best thing to do at that point, of course, is to shrink wrap your whole roof to protect it during the storm. And it's a lot more durable than your tarps are.
Oh, okay. Because I know I've never really heard about that until recently, about shrink wrapping.
Yeah, so if you've ever seen a brand new boat going down the road and you can't really see the boat, but you can see it looks like a boat, but it has a white, thick plastic material that's heat shrunk on there, and it's very durable. So it's a very good product. It's expensive, but it works a lot better than your tarps do.
How long does that usually last on the roof? How long can you leave that on?
Well, so that just depends on the conditions, you know. So after the hurricanes and stuff like that, when we go to put emergency tarps on people's roofs, if they choose to go um with the shrink wrap, then it lasts a lot longer. But it kind of depends on, you know, the conditions and whether you get more wind again, you know, like last year, you know, after the hurricane, we had gotten, you know, a couple weeks later, we had another system roll through. So it kind of all depends on, but it can go from, you know, a year, you know, which is a lot better than your tarps.
Okay, terrific. All right, let me just talk a little about accounting, which is really not so vital during the hurricane, but boards should go ahead and have some type of either credit card or petty cash or in-press fund available to them, because our office could be closed even though we can work remotely. You know, there may be like a delay in cutting a check for a vendor. So if your community doesn't have a credit card established, they should really get one. The other thing that I always recommend is a contingency line of credit. Because during a storm, you may have deductibles on your insurance. You may have a lot of expenses that you just may not have the cash in the bank to spend on for that emergency, and you may need it very quickly. If you establish a contingency line of credit with your bank, then you always have these funds either to take care of the deductible, or if, for argument's sake, you have a very high deductible and you have to lay out a couple of $100,000, you know, for any type of repair, and you don't have it in the bank account, you know, with one phone call, the bank will go ahead and fund that money right into your bank account, and you can go ahead and take care of any type of emergencies that you need. Let me just see if there's any other questions here.
Mark, there was one question
Yes.
concerning what you mentioned, association financials. In your opinion, wouldn't it also be important to have them backed up so that similar to what Kat mentioned earlier about having your policies backed up and accessible in digital format might be a good
Right.
idea for your clients too, correct?
Absolutely. Thanks, Jeff, for that. I mean, you know, obviously, if you have a professional accounting service, they're probably backed up, you know, many ways so that all your information is protected. But there are boards that obviously are doing the accounting or the monthly bookkeeping themselves, and it's crucial. There's so many times that I'll speak to a brand new client and I'll ask them if they have their computer systems backed up. And the answer is no. And, you know, with that, you can go ahead, even if it's not a storm, you know, your computer can go down and you can lose all that history. You can lose all the information on the unit owner ledgers, on all your vendor payables, on your receivables. It's crucial that you go ahead and you back it up a number of different ways, through the cloud, through an external drive. You should, you know, speak to your IT person, but make sure that your computer is backed up with all that information. You know, here at Account obviously, you know, we back it up 3 or 4 different ways. So we can operate, you know, at any point in time, even if, you know, the building is shut down and we can't get in, we can operate, you know, remotely. So it's crucial that, again, you know, your computer is always backed up. As far as the COG members, is there anything, and you can unmute yourself, is there anything extra that you want to go ahead and talk about to the participants in this group? I see Adam's hand moving slowly to unmute himself.
I would just say that when it comes to flood insurance, the reimbursement for restoration companies like myself, like FEMA floods, if there's a situation like that, they don't pay for 6 months, you know, either yourself or the contractors. So us and mostly everyone else, well, if it's flood, is going to ask for the money up front. So make sure, like Catherine mentioned, your deductible amount, make sure you have, I don't know, a couple thousand on hand, just in case you need some real quick, easy services done to make sure that you save your house from further damage and flooding. That's also important to have cash on hand too.
Right.
Thank you.
All right, terrific. Dawn, can you unmute yourself? There is one question for the paving lady. She may have walked away for a few minutes. Okay, we'll get her back after that. And then Tim from our elevator, there's a question. And I think that you covered it, but maybe you can expand on it. What happens if they're calling it, underneath the elevator, the area underneath, if it starts flooding out, what should be done?
So if you find that the elevator pit is full of water, and again, it's the size of your elevator front to back, side to side, and it's 4 feet deep below the first floor level. If you find that that's full of water, then you can contact your elevator companies. All of us in the industry know companies that come pump out pits. There's even Adam. Adam may even deal with this type of thing, pumping water out of elevator pits, because it's the kind of thing that it happens so often that I'd be shocked, Adam, that you guys haven't dealt with this kind of thing before.
No, we have a sub pump just for those situations. Yeah, absolutely.
Mhm. But what they have to know is, especially hydraulic elevators, the elevator pit contains hydraulic oil in it. So if there's water in there, it needs to be properly disposed of per the EPA standards, due to the fact that unfortunately water getting in there is going to mix with some of the hydraulic oil. And now you've got a bit of a contaminated water situation, which again, there's companies that handle this and do that, but you just have to make sure it's addressed and resolved. And your elevator companies and anyone in the industry, as well as us, can assist in helping get that issue resolved.
Okay, terrific. Somebody is typing a question right this second. Oh, it's for Craig. Can you unmute yourself from Professional Builders?
Of course.
Craig, question that they have, not necessarily it was on hurricanes, but they were just asking about, if you can expand on what other services you do other than janitorial.
Sure, of course. We do common area maintenance for condos and HOAs. We also do carpets, windows, floors, so all the ancillary services that go along with the janitorial company. And we also have a light maintenance division. Basically, we can do anything that doesn't require any licensing or permitting. Drywall repair, touch-up paint, rebuilding dumpster enclosures, things of that nature.
Okay, and then there was a follow-up. If they want to have some staff like permanently on the premise, do you go ahead and subcontract that out, or can you supply, basically labor that would be there, on a weekly basis or 3 times a week?
All the people that work for us, they're our employees, so we can provide that.
Okay, so then if somebody needed somebody on a permanent basis, that's I think what they were getting at, you can go ahead and
Yes.
supply that, person, and they would, be there on a weekly basis.
Absolutely. We're doing that currently for probably different management companies with over 35 employees.
Oh, terrific. Okay. All right, great. Let me just see if there's any other questions here. Again, for the participants that have joined us, we thank you again. There is in the chat area, there's contact information to get to CARG, which is again CARG, the number 4, and then help HELP.org, and that'll have all our information there. This video will be recorded, so you can always come back to it. I see that Jeff went ahead and put on, basically our website. And just clicking on any of those links will give you a little blurb, and it'll also give you the contact information. Jeff, I really appreciate that. All righty. Any other COG members want to say anything else before we go ahead and we conclude?